The other thing that LinkedIn has, and I'm not sure most of you are aware of, is what's called a company profile. Up until probably middle of last year, you had to have at least 25 employees to have a company profile. You can now have one employee and have a company profile. So I'd encourage all of you, if you don't yet have one, to put one out there. Certainly you can customize it with logo, as much information as you want to put out there or not. Again, the summary though of your business needs to have those keywords from a marketing orientation. One of the other things that I think is personally one of the greatest things about LinkedIn is what's called the status bar, message bar to communicate. What you see shown up here is that you have this area to write, as it says, article, question, thank you, whatever. You have 160 characters, so it's very similar, 140 characters, so it's very similar to a tweet. What you also now have is the ability to add a URL down here. So as you guys get ready to have these meetings, if you have a particular URL associated to the meeting, then for example, Sue could go into her status bar, say this is a meeting, coffee break on the main, you can't miss it, put in the URL, and that would go out to her whole network. So one way to get more people involved. The other thing that you can do is if you have that particular event set up on Eventbrite or someplace else, then it actually shows it down here. And for those of you that are into Twittering, by just checking that box, you can now tweet this particular message out to anybody that's following you. So one of the other advantages to LinkedIn is it's now becoming integrated with other tools. One of the key things to think about as you get started is your philosophy of networking. We talked earlier, Mike O'Neill has 27,000 connections. Now, that sounds pretty exciting until you think about how you're going to manage and retain that network. A network in LinkedIn is really no different than your network here within the Irving Chamber, so you've got to stay on top of it. So what you want to think about is how many people you want to connect to and the benefits it brings you. At one point, I had 183 connections, and the whole point of LinkedIn is you have a network up to 3 degrees away, which then took me to 6 million people. I have chosen to only connect with people that I've met face to face. I currently am at 411 connections, and look at this. My network is now 6.5 million, roughly. So it's increased, but not as dramatically as you would expect. So as you connect with people, think about who you're connecting with and what you're ultimately driving to down here. Okay, another thing I'll just hit on real quick. There are what's called groups out in LinkedIn. A year ago, there were 300,000. I think the number now has exceeded 400,000. I did a search. It turns out that the Irving Chamber does not have a group on LinkedIn. So one of the things that you guys may want to consider on a go-forward basis. For those of you in business, the other reason for starting a group would be to get people joining your group that you may not have a way to connect with otherwise. One of the other things you can do with groups is that you can send out messages. So for example, if there were an Irving Chamber group, if I wanted to send a message out that talked about an upcoming event, I don't need to have all of your email addresses. I can simply send the message out to the group. The example that's shown up here is that this is what comes in your inbox, just like your other email. And then when you click on it though, this is the message. And here within this one, it's now actually taking you to a YouTube video. So again, the ability to start with LinkedIn, to send a message to people that you may not have email addresses for, to ultimately show them a video is a great example of integration. Events. How many people know about events on LinkedIn? Oh, wow. This is like the message bar. You know, there are certain things I just think are really cool. You can actually go out and put events on LinkedIn. So again, this would be an example of an event that could be out there. When you do that, you are bound to get people that come that you didn't anticipate or wouldn't have reached otherwise. It's been over a year now that my partner and I have been doing LinkedIn workshops. We have had somewhere between 7 and 10 people come to our workshops that found them because we had a LinkedIn event and they were searching on LinkedIn training, Dallas area, and found us. So you may not pick up hundreds, but sometimes 1, 2, 3, 5 make a big difference. The other thing that happens is it will bring you up on the Google searches or the Yahoo searches or whatever. LinkedIn is actually owned by Bain Capital and 6 or 7 other investors. And so their whole, I'll call it motive in life, is to make sure that when you have a LinkedIn profile or your company's on LinkedIn, that you come up high in the searches. It used to be if you went and searched my website, tab-dallasmetrowest.com, which is obviously very specific, that would show up number 1. Now, the majority of the time, my LinkedIn profile shows up first because it references my website and my website shows up second. So this goes back to part of the reason that you want to be in LinkedIn is for people to find you or your business. Okay, we've talked about some of the integration that you can do. This is just a real quick example of this particular lady owns this company, and she went out and took a picture of the sign out front, speaking of signs, and all she did was take one picture. What you can do in LinkedIn is take that, I'll call it picture, and put it in a file so that now when you click on her profile, you see this picture, okay? I mean, how easy is that to be promoting your business? So there's a number of other things, not to mention the fact, again, you have the metrics of how many people have come in and viewed this. It doesn't tell you who it is, but it gives you a sense of how many. This is another lady who actually is a Tab business owner in the Fort Worth area, and she has this bed and breakfast. The part up here is her website. This is some of the information that she has out on LinkedIn. And so again, she references people from LinkedIn to her website and back again. One of the areas that I could spend hours on, and I won't, I know I'm almost out of time here, is the searching capability. I talked earlier about 68 million users. One of the key things about LinkedIn is it's called user-generated data. So what does that really mean? If it's put in by me or you, it's probably more accurate, it's probably more timely, and it's probably more in depth. So when you're thinking about doing searches on companies or people or businesses or whatever, you want to go to the database that's going to give you the most accurate information. So the search capabilities within LinkedIn are just absolutely phenomenal. You can search on a number of different things as you see up here, and the other thing you can do is what's called saved searches. And so you set up your criteria. Let's say it's small business owners in the Irving area that do X, Y, and Z. You set that search up, and then every Monday morning, the results of that search show up in your inbox. How cool is that? I'd also encourage you on the searches to make sure you're using the advanced screens. That's where you pick up a lot of neat information. And there's some gotchas that go along with LinkedIn. Just to hit on 1 or 2 of them, you only have 3,000 invitations, which on one hand sounds like a whole lot, except that you don't want to be sending them out to people that only have 2 or 3 connections. You want to connect with people that have at least 50, if not more, connections. Otherwise, you're using up your 3,000 with no benefit. The other thing that I'd encourage you guys to think about is when somebody sends you an invitation, you have 3 options. You can either accept it, you can click I don't know, or you can archive it. Now, if you send me an invitation and I click I don't know, you are only allowed 5 of those, okay? If you get 5, then your account's frozen by LinkedIn, and it's not a fun thing to try to get it set up again. So when you're asking people to connect with you, make sure that they know who you are. And this is one of the things we go through in our workshop about how to personalize your invitations and so forth. The other thing is make sure that you have all your